Hey, this is Dr. Takima Dorsey with another wonderful season kickoff of Leadership in the Urban Market. As an entrepreneur, as a mom, as a leader, as a civic engagement, as an individual, as a scholar, and always trying to bring solutions to areas of problems, there is always new and exciting things to learn each and every day. But just to wake up each day is a blessing in itself. Recently, you may remember that I have published 65 books within a 60-day time frame, and I'm super excited about it. The number one, or the focus, or the foundation, I should say, of why these books came to light is really about breaking the cycle of poverty. And one of my new books, called Breaking the Cycle of Poverty Through Innate Skill Set Development, for me is extremely important, because what we found from COVID-19 is that the unemployment line wasn't biased to anyone, whether you had a degree or you had no degree, and including those with doctoral degrees. So skill set development is an extremely important topic, and not just topic, but development of it. One of my skill sets happened to be the gift to gab, which is advocacy through interviewing and things like that. So hence why Leadership in the Urban Market exists. Being on the air since 2010, almost 12 years now, I've had the pleasure to interview individuals across the globe, gone syndicated, prime time, and the list continues. But I love the flexibility of being able to gain new knowledge, learn new things, and interview exciting individuals. Today, I have a wonderful colleague of mine that I've known for just as long as I've had the opportunity to actually be on the airwaves. And I'm excited to pick his brain in areas of leadership, education, and community partnership. So without ado, I am going to allow my colleague to introduce himself to learn a little more about him. I love everything that you mentioned. And if people, as those that are watching, we're not talking about degrees. We are just talking about individuals coming to the forefront, going from a theory in what you wanted to actually leading the way. And this brings us to the topic that I endure and embody the most, because to me, it is the beginning and the end of success or failure, and that is leadership. And so when we're talking about tackling issues such as education, or infusing or enhancing or scaling, launching businesses, and as Dr. Perry mentioned it, just getting involved and learning the process, and kind of building and understanding your and enhancing your knowledge base, it goes back into who you are and who you are not. Yes, illiterate language, but it's okay. It's my show. I can do what I want. So leadership. So Dr. Perry, we've talked about education today, the disparities, the successes, the dual enrollment, the lack of what I identified, the tri-strangulation approach between districts and community college, as they try to prepare students on this blueprint moving forward, getting ready for post-secondary opportunities. We talked how the community partnerships can really close the gap, and is truly the heart of what allows our holistic system to go around. But we know, Dr. Perry, in theory, that sounds great. It's in practical application where it falls apart. And let's start with you, knowing where you have evolved in life, the humble beginnings you spoke of with your mom still being an advocate and loving on the youth as a educator, and you being able to see so much from Maryland to Georgia and across the U.S. What would you identify as a key to you being an effective leader, and how could you be more efficient as a leader to be an asset, not just to yourself, but to those around you?
Thank you for that question. Yes, I think a lot of my leadership experience stems from an inherited background, from my mom being a educator for over 40 years in the public school system, and from my father being a leader in social justice and as well as employment. That leadership skills are often learned, and you learn it from the people that you're around. And to be an effective leader, you need to be knowledgeable of the areas you're trying to persuade or you're trying to convey to other folks. So one is you have to develop a knowledge base, right? If I'm going to lead, I need to know what I'm talking about. I need to be passionate about it. And more importantly, I need to know how to convey it to others so they can understand where we're trying to go and how we're trying to get there. So there's what you call effective communication, effective time management, leadership skills. There are programs that one should enroll themselves in. From the time I was coming out of college, I enrolled myself in every leadership program I could enroll myself in. I also had a company that was a leadership-driven company with leadership principles. But how we can help our leaders of today, we can help them by getting them more engaged in the political process and getting them more engaged in the transformative process of transforming others, institutions, people, laws. We need to prepare our folks that leadership is not something that you just walk into, but it's something that you prepare for. And so how you can be more efficient in your leadership skills is by really, Dr. Dorsey, having folks like yourself that have been doing it for so many years, have you as kind of a person to listen and to help us or help those who need help to develop a sense of not only leadership, but a sense of who they are and where they want to go with that leadership. I yield back to you.
Sorry, yes, absolutely. Dr. Perry, you said so eloquently so many things. And what we found today, or what we find today as leaders trying to leave a legacy for ourselves and for the next set of individuals, the one thing we always hear, youth are the leaders of tomorrow. Well, Dr. Perry, what do you think? But before you answer, I'm going to share my insight. I say you are already leaders. They already have that innate skill set that they literally want to learn how to utilize. And, when we're talking about leading one out of the trenches or out of the valley, one of the things that I know I advocate for and also want, and I think you share the same sentiments, but absolutely touch upon it, is teaching youth how to advocate today. And when we say advocacy come in really one or two ways. Is either speaking or writing, right? It's you either speaking things through or you're writing it, or a combination. And how do we help not just youth, but really young adults, not just young adults, but adults, how to advocate for themselves? And it goes back to what you were saying, is to enroll in training, is to become certified, is to find those community programs that have viable curriculum and instruction that's going to help someone elevate themselves. But we find today that a lot of adults don't really know how to articulate what it is that they need or what is it that they want. And as a result, communities are facing high unemployment rate. They're facing a lot of homelessness, a lot of job losses. You know, it's one thing to interview for a job, and it's another thing to keep the job and to grow. So when we're talking about leadership, you know, advocacy for me is huge, not just for adults, but mainly youth, because once they turn 18, their parents' voices become obsolete. What is your take on teaching or helping people to learn how to advocate for themselves? And like you said, the teamwork, the communication, the balance, you know, those variable and attributes that they should hold. We're finding in the real world, Dr. Perry, that a lot of adults don't have those attributes to be successful themselves.
Yes, yes, that was a good point that you bring up, Dr. Dorsey, and you brought up several points there. One is there are a lot of levels of leadership. There's the individual accountability leadership. There's that person who's responsible for themselves and how they manipulate themselves or manage to work themselves through life, right? The pathways, the decisions, the choices that they make. That's a individual leadership. And then we have the second tier is the leadership that comes from the adults or the mentoring bodies that the individual leadership, the individual leader, yourself, the kids have to address or to, you know, to answer to. And so that's a different tier of leaders. And the leaders that are your parents need to understand that, you know, in leadership, you have to do as you want others to do. So if I'm going to lead you in a positive way, I can't be negative and expect you to become a positive leader. So I need to be an example of what I want to see or what I expect out of a person. And so one of the things that is very important in today's society as it relates to leadership is, one, pick the right leaders. We all have the power. If I can't be in charge of the parent association, I can pick a parent who exemplifies some of the things I believe in, or all the things I believe in, and I can pick that parent to be the leader of that organization or what we want them to be, to want them to lead. And that goes with our government from a local standpoint, it goes from it at a higher state as well as a federal standpoint. We have to pick the leaders that will develop the policies and the ideas that will help to move us forward in a way that we are being led in a positive way, and by not being led in a negative way. And that is so important, and it's often lost when we don't become a part of the process to pick the leaders that are going to lead us in the right direction. And so as it relates to how one should look at leadership, one should look at leadership as a responsibility. I'm leading others in a way that I want them to understand that I have the confidence and the ability, and I agree with the subject matter or the thing I'm trying to lead them to. And so that's important, that we show integrity, honesty, and more importantly, that we show that we care in our leadership characteristics as well as our ability to lead. I yield back to you.
Yes, and you brought up an excellent point in picking the right leader. You know, we're not going to make this a political platform at all, but we are in a seasons to really make a difference in picking the right individuals to advocate on our behalf in the upcoming elections. Right now, there are people running for Board of Education members. They're running for seats for districts. There are individuals that are running for or hoping to be picked for from a governor, be picked by the governor to sit on the Board of Education. There are people running to replace the local state's attorney, city and council persons. The gubernatorial election is coming up. Now is the time to pick the right leader. But Dr. Perry, in your years of experience, and we're wanting people to get involved, not just from a community partnership to help close the gaps in education and in their own lives with their bottom dollar, but picking the right person. Leadership isn't easy, right? And it isn't always popular, but with the right person, it can be and is effective. What are some things that you would encourage individuals to look for as they're looking to pick the right person with these upcoming elections that will forever change the next 2 to 4 years in their local, their national, their state, and on the national level? Dr. Perry?
Yes, great question. I think that one of the things that we have to look at, and the main thing we have to look at, is one's history. A history tells a lot about a person in the decision making, as well as how they lead. And so when we want an effective leader, we need to know that the leader that we are electing is consistent in their thoughts, is consistent in their actions, is consistent in how and what they do for the people. We have a lot of leaders that will talk the game, but they won't walk the talk. And so we need leaders who are transformative, transactional, and more importantly, shows a high degree of integrity and honesty. Because it's important for us to have a leader that is not only going to lead us to the promised land, but is going to do it in a way that we can be proud and we can see this leadership as something that's going to be sustainable and not broken down. And I think that's important. And the second thing is, we as a community, we need to know what we need. We can't select a leader unless we know what our wants are. And so we have to be able to articulate, as you said, Dr. Dorsey, what the concerns and what the problems or issues are in our communities and how we feel we want to be governed as it relates to those issues. Yes, in some communities, there's a lot of crime, but do we want to be governed by authoritarian process where you just go in and you start locking people up, or you putting curfews into areas, or you bring in National Guards to kind of curb the violence? Or do we want to be in an area where, or do we want to be in a situation where that leader understands the problems and he brings in the social and economic services that can reduce some of the issues that we're facing while we're going through a transformative process? And transforming anything is never easy. You know, it never happens just overnight. It's a process. So our leaders also have to come with a plan, and that community plan or that societal change plan or that economic plan needs to really not only be vetted for, is it something that can be done, but it needs to be vetted for who does it protect and who does it help. And we can't have one-sided plans that help one part of the society, but leaves out the other part of society. And you can't just change individuals overnight, but you have to change them through a process. I yield back to you.
Yes, absolutely. And I love how you said there has to be a plan. So as we're taking your words of wisdom into action, Dr. Perry, when people are picking leaders, whether it's during election time, whether it's doing to fill a vacancy, whether it's to think of a community partner to partner with, whether it's thinking of hiring someone from a contractor or an employee standpoint, what's their plan? And what's your plan? And does their plan fit with your vision? And so being able to know a person that has a plan knocks out 90% of the uncertainty. And so, Dr. Perry, how does a person get started with leadership? It's such a complicated word, and some people may not be sure how to get started. What would you offer them as to the ABCs?
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey, for that. I think one, a person needs knowledge. They need a base of knowledge on what they feel comfortable with, comfortable in, I should say, to lead. So whatever knowledge means to that individual, if it's books, if it's videos, if it's classroom time, whatever that is to that individual, they need to build a base of knowledge that will allow them to lead in a specific area of leadership or a specific area of life that they want to lead in. If it's spiritual life, if it's business life, if it's educational life, social, whatever, there's leadership opportunities for everyone, but you need to have the knowledge in that subject matter. The next one is attitude. You have to have a positive attitude. Whenever you are in a leadership role, you have to understand that it's not only you that are making these decisions, but you're making decisions on behalf of other people. So you have to have the attitude that you are amenable to learn and to work with other folks and to understand that people around you have great ideas, and you need to be able to infuse those ideas into your leadership styles, into your leadership style and into your leadership process. And one I left out was skill set. You have to develop the skill set, the knowledge, and the attitude. And the skill set comes from practicing. The skill set comes from the educational piece. The skill set comes from the one's ability to just manifest his thoughts in a way that he creates a proper ideal process where he understands and they can give out great ideas, and they know how to utilize those ideas into a process that help others. I yield back to you. Dr. Dorsey, yes. So with
yes. So I'm sorry about that. You know, things don't always go the way you want, but they always go the way they need to. And so, you know, everything that you just said, you know, skill set, you know, they're all important. And so as we begin to wrap this up, because, you know, we could go forever, what are some words of wisdom, insight, or positive affirmation that you have for the audience to help them to understand that they woke up this morning, therefore their due diligence in the world and making a positive attribute is not over, but they got to start from somewhere? What would you?
Thank you. And I would say to everyone out there listening that we all have that innate ability to do something well. And it's a God-given ability. And we need to be able to tap in to those abilities that are given to us. We all can lead. We all have the power to lead. We all have knowledge in some particular area to lead in. We have to understand where our gifts are and our ability to lead in that particular subject matter or particular area of leadership. And secondly, I would say to your audience is that, you know, leadership comes to those who want to lead. Some are not born leaders, but you can become a leader by developing the skill set, developing the knowledge, developing the attitude that you would like to be heard, and more importantly, you would like to lead in a process. But understand, with leadership, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it because you have people that will depend on your every actions. And so When we talk about leadership, we talk about being transactional, which means that we have to develop the activities that enhances our leadership and that allows us to make leadership decisions. When we talk of transformative, we're talking about transforming situations into better situations through the skill set, the educational process, through our knowledge, and through our practice, which enable us to create a transformative space where things can be changed, people can be changed, society can be changed, political arenas can be changed, political institutions can be changed. So with that, we have to understand, and then we have to understand there's various forms of leaderships. There's bureaucracy leadership, there's dictatorship leadership, there is democracy leadership, there's incentive leadership, influencing others passively and aggressively in forms of leadership. So we have to understand where we fall as we progress in our leadership style, in our leadership purpose. I yield back to you.
Absolutely. And you could not have said it any more better. And it has been an absolute pleasure to have you, Dr. Perry, on the Leadership in the Urban Market with Dr. Takima Dorsey, speaking about education, community partnerships, and leadership. If you are an individual that is looking to make a difference for yourself in the world, but you're not quite sure how to get started or where to go, please do me a favor and reach out to be a guest on our show, or if you're looking for promotional opportunities or marketing, be sure to reach out to info@dtdenterprises.com. I'm excited to always learn and to hear from individuals that are a part of the show and that have an insight far greater than I do. And so as a leader and as a person that is always learning to hear from others and to learn from new individuals, I absolutely thank my guest today. And we look forward to seeing you on the next show. If you have any comments, do reach out to us as you have the opportunity to do so. And we look forward to seeing you on the next broadcast. So until then, have a great and wonderful day. And remember that all things are possible as long as you believe and have faith of a mustard seed. Peace out.